this is Nail the Interview. I think we can do a few more sessions around the interview because there's so much to it. But this one's particularly focused on the STAR technique. So situation, task, action, response. It's just a method basically used in answer to interview well and have a bit of structure. Remember, graduate, apprentice, work experience, maybe you want to go and travel for 5 years and come back and work. But when you are ready and you're ready for that interview, this is a good technique to know about. So agenda for today, how you can communicate in this session, I'll talk about next, and some of you already know and you're doing it. Introductions from our panelist, there's just one today. Strengths and competency questions. So we'll look at different types of questions you might get asked in the interview, and you can have a go at answering some of the examples that we've got. Then I want you to have a go at creating your own STAR example that you can take to an interview, and you're going to need a few different STAR examples for when you do interview. So it's good, like, have a piece of paper and just write down maybe one good STAR example I want you to leave here today with. Hopefully you can share it with us on the webinar as well. Conclusion and plenary, just about what we've discussed. And then we'll do a bit of a Q&A with Abby in terms of just like a little bit more about your role and what you do and whatever you guys want to ask her really. But she will introduce herself properly in a second. So how you can communicate, I made it a bit simpler today. Chat box is for the gossip, I think we call it, and just anything that you want to just say that's not a direct question. The Q&A box is where you want to post a question, and I'll make sure that we try and get through all of them. Abby, you've got to be gone by 3 o'clock, is that right?
Yeah.
If it has to be earlier, do it, because Guy had to finish a bit earlier because he had to do something, so we had to leave at 2:45 yesterday, so we couldn't get through all the questions. Raising your hand, guys, is how you basically speak to Abby and myself. I want to do that a little bit more in this session because it makes it a bit more engaging. And what I'll do, I'll just cue you up, and then I'll make sure that I unlock you and put you off mute so you can speak. So you all know who I am. I'm obviously the founder of Pathway. But let's talk a little bit about Abby. Just to introduce yourself, what your company does, the opportunities for young people, a bit about your story probably, Abby, because you came through the Pathway program, and over to you for a little bit.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Chris. So yeah, my name's Abby. I, like Chris said, used to go to World of Kent. I joined PwC as a hire apprentice. I've been there just over 7 months now. So probably in a lot of your kind of guys' positions not too long ago. Yeah, I joined management consultancy, so basically helping businesses to solve important problems in whatever form that might be. We also have lines of service in audit, so accountants, tax, deals, so like mergers and acquisitions when two businesses come together. The thing with PwC is I kind of do everything, so I can answer those of your questions if you want to know more about that. But yeah, I was going to go to university. I applied to university. I also applied to a handful of apprenticeships, and then kind of made the decision at the end that PwC was the right decision for me.
Okay, awesome. And PwC, by the way, so you've got PwC, Deloitte, EY, and KPMG, like the big four. Like, are you guys number one at the moment? What do you get told, or what do you tell people?
I think PwC is number one for management consultancy. I'm not 100% sure about the other lines of service. They're very big.
Bear with me. I've just realised what I've done here. Sorry, guys. That was my fault. I paused the share. That should be working now. Really sorry about that. Sorry, Abby, I messed up the... let me just quickly take you through, guys. Yeah, chat box, Q&A, raise your hand. Yeah, to be fair, you didn't miss much. Okay, so number one, would you say, PwC?
For management consultancy, yeah.
Management consultancy. And consultancy, just tell us, like, day to day, what does that mean? Are you one of the accountants, or are you somebody that does the speaking about the accountants? How does it work?
So management consultancy is one of those ones where it's not one thing. The overarching theme is that we help businesses to solve problems, but we literally work in every single industry, whether that be an investment bank, whether that be the NHS, we do counter-terrorism, we do supermarkets, absolutely everything. And that might be helping them to be more efficient, to increase their profits, help them grow, help them solve problems, literally everything. At the moment, I'm doing digital transformation, so helping companies to use new technologies and new software to be more efficient, upskill their workers. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Quite an interesting department to work in at the moment.
Yeah, it's very relevant because literally every single company, as you will all guys know, has to be remote, has to be working virtually. So helping companies to understand the best ways to do that.
Okay, good stuff. So that's interesting. Abby, so you left school, what, last year?
Yeah.
Left school last year at PwC. Like, it's quite good that you're on for this one, because getting into like one of the best companies in the world, like PwC, is one of those huge companies that so many people apply for. So it's great that we can speak to you about interviews and about sort of what you went through. So I do think about any questions you've got for Abby, log them in as we go. But let's just have a think about interviews. So I'll just put down here with interviews, knowing the process is really important. Every different company will have a different process. Big companies, and we'll see what Abby did in terms of her applications. Did she apply for one or more? They will have very similar big processes, whereas a small company like mine, it might just be CV to interview. So I just want to ask Abby a little bit about yourself and how you prepared, and did you know the process going into PwC?
Yeah. I've just also had one question that's popped up from Andrew, so I'm just going to answer that.
Different, yeah.
So Andrew asked, is your apprenticeship wage enough to live in London? I know several people that do live in London. They flat share with other apprentices, or they rent a room. You definitely can live in London off your apprenticeship wage, but I do live at home at the moment. But yeah, that's just my choice. You know, I want to save money and buy a mortgage one day, but there's no reason why you couldn't rent in London. But yeah, back to Chris, your question about the interview process.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first stage is research, and this isn't an official stage. This is just you being proactive and going on PwC's website and actually understanding what it is you're applying for, and kind of understanding, you know, what does a consultant do, what does an accountant do. And then, you know, there's also a Match Me tool, which can kind of help you understand what perhaps is the best job role for you, and, you know, what are your interests and how would that fit into a role at PwC. So yeah, the first two are not official stages, but they are helpful. And then the third stage is a situational judgment test, which is where you're looking at videos of someone who's, you know, a life of someone at PwC. You'll watch videos of scenarios. You'll be asked to make kind of judgments. What would you do in that scenario? It's very interactive. The fourth stage is then a game-based assessment. So that is an app where you do various games. You have your psychometric tests at the end, but it kind of takes the pressure off because it's quite fun, and you can kind of do it in your own time. There's no pressure. And then if you pass that, you go on to the career conversation. So that's a video interview where they'll ask you questions and you will record yourself answering those questions. The sixth stage is the assessment day. So that is when you go into the office, you spend the day at PwC, you do various tasks in groups, presentations, kind of working through financial reports, you know, looking at lots of different data, and kind of working through that. Obviously at the moment they can't have the in-person assessment days because of everything that's going on with COVID-19, but they are working around this. They are doing virtual things. They just onboarded 250 graduates yesterday, all remotely, so you don't need to worry about COVID-19 and getting a place.
And that is what's happening. So anyone who's applying for apprenticeships this year, do get in touch with us, because we can help you with the video side of things and doing it virtually. Like, you shouldn't be scared about it at all. So there we go. So you had those 7 different steps. Did you know about that going into PwC? So you knew it would be a long process and you had to tackle it, yeah?
Yeah, it's quite daunting at the beginning. Like, I remember thinking, there's no way I'm going to get through all 7 of these stages. And kind of after every one that you pass, you're like, oh God, like another one. And yeah, you just kind of keep going and, you know, apply to lots of different apprenticeships, because, you know, you will get knocked down. You're probably not going to get into all of them. I remember I got rejected from loads, so just keep trying.
What other firms did you apply for?
All of the big 4, EY, Deloitte, KPMG. I mean, I got rejected from EY at the first stage, so
how did that make you feel, Abby?
Yeah, it's not great. It's stressful, but if you apply to lots of different ones, then you always know that there's another opportunity.
Cool. No, it's good. Okay. And then this next slide I think is quite important for when you're there, right? Just talk us through this slide if you can.
Yeah, so this is essentially what they will assess you against. So at all of those stages that we just talked about, they'll, can you show whole leadership? Can you build relationships? Do you have good business understanding? Do you have technical capabilities? Do you ask the right questions? Do you listen? Your global acumen, can you work with people from different backgrounds? Yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay, so I'm looking at this. This is pretty much core competencies. So these are the competencies that PwC look for. Therefore, when you're interviewing for a firm like PwC, you need to match yourself to their competencies. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Interesting. We've got lots of questions coming in. Karishma, we are going to do one on an assessment centre. So particularly if you are going to do an assessment centre soon. Are the interviews for big companies similar to interviews for universities? So could we use the techniques and skills here for both? Abby, what would you say about that? Do you know?
I guess if you're being interviewed by university, then you're going to be interviewed by Cambridge and Oxford, and I guess maybe some other ones, because the majority of them it's just an online application. But yeah, I think you definitely can apply these things. These kind of values and skills are going to be useful to any employer, whether that be a university or a company. So yeah, definitely.
And look, let's move on with the show. So STAR interview techniques, guys, you can use this for any type of interview, whether it's university or for a job. It's basically how to talk about yourself. But in terms of companies, we're going to go into detail on this. Competency-based interviews, which we'll go into. You've also got strength-based interviews, which is a new type of question that people will throw at you. I just want to cover that briefly. We've got the STAR technique, which we'll just go into detail, and we'll have a bit of practice with that today, and some top tips at the end, really. But competency versus strength-based questioning, if you can see that slide. Competency is what we just saw there from PwC. So here is what we're looking for: set behaviours, and we want to look for people like Abby who are going to be, intelligent enough and have the right sort of competencies that we look for in the business. There's lots of money and research that goes into finding more Abbeys and different versions of Abbeys, but ultimately they want a diverse workforce who come with lots of different trails of thoughts, but still can deliver on the job, because it is, it's quite a competitive environment you're in, isn't it? It's quite tough on you, isn't it, first year in?
Yeah, I guess it's there's loads of learning opportunities, and also something that's quite interesting is this, what you're teaching us, Chris. Yeah. Even once you're at PwC, you will be continuously asked to use these skills. Even when we have moderation, it's not just what have you done, but it's how have you done it, what impact has it had, what was the result of that.
Okay, brilliant, yes. And what about competencies, by the way? Do you think that the process you've been through, the competencies, like we look here, how you evaluate your competency, situational examples, do you think that you look at other PwCers, people that you work with, and they are similar in some way? How does it work? What do you think? Sorry,
what was the actual question?
Yeah, terrible question. What do you think when you look at your colleagues? Do you think that they do resemble the interview process in a way? Is there anything that you can say, yeah, at PwC everybody is like this, or is there anything like that, Abby?
At PwC, everyone is proactive. Everyone will find their own opportunities, and it's always aligned to what they're interested in. And because there's so many opportunities, like I'm really interested in student recruitment and advertising apprenticeships because I think they're great. So I get involved with that. I'm also really passionate about, new technologies. I got involved with that. Other people might be more interested in finance. You kind of demonstrate those skills, but you align them to your specific interests.
Okay, good stuff. No, it's good to hear. And then we've also got strengths as well. So that's another way that companies look at you. I'm just going to put up the definitions here so we can read through them. Competency is the one that we were just looking at. So competency-based interviews, also known as structured behavioural or situational interviews, are designed to test one or more skill or competency. So we looked at PwC, they have those 5 different competencies before. They are looking to test those. Competency interviews work on the principle that past behaviour is the best indicator for future performance. So therefore, Abby, in your interview, did you have to think about things that you had done and why they were key to the interview?
Yeah, I mean, I was having to think of examples that I, demonstrated leadership. I was thinking about, my Saturday part-time job, I did something called, you know, I think it was called Young Enterprise, Business Young Enterprise, where you make a business. I had to think of loads of examples during my school kind of history of where I'd demonstrated above and beyond, you know, just attending school. So if you have a part-time job or anything like that, think about how you can use those examples to demonstrate those core competency skills.
And obviously, Abby, you smashed it. You're at PwC doing brilliantly. You did work experience as well, didn't you, in year 12?
Yeah, I did.
Was that a similar sort of process? Was it still hard to get into that?
Yeah, I still had to do an assessment day in the office, which was absolutely terrifying when you're like 17 years old, or I don't even know how old I was, 16, 17. But actually, I think it was really, really useful, because when it came to the real thing, I'd already done something like that before. I knew what to expect, and actually my nerves weren't as bad.
Okay, cool. So we've got competency there, and that's Abby at PwC. Strengths is a different way of looking at it. So let me read this to you. You'll be asked questions that are designed to find out what your interests are, basically, and what your strengths are. Strength-based interviews are based upon the premise that someone who has a genuine interest and strength in certain areas will be more suitable for a role than someone whose interests don't match up with the role. Okay, so they're looking at your strengths and your interests and your passions sometimes. So a good example for that, actually, I'll come on to that in a second. But the reason they do that, okay, is because sometimes you might be sat there going, competency, I've got no experience of anything. I've done no work experience. I don't have a part-time job. I was never a prefect. I literally just scraped by and got my grades, and that's all I've been focused on doing. I've got nothing. And look, companies do see that, and that's why quite a lot of them, about 43% are starting to use this strength-based approach, which basically means don't really care about your experience. I care about your passion and what you're interested in. So we'll look at how that differs. IBM and UBS. We're going to look at 3 different companies, and we can have a bit of a go with this as well. We'll answer some of your questions now. So IBM, what type of question is this? It's a competency-based example, as is for UBS. So IBM, please provide specific examples of when you have demonstrated the below competencies in the past. Tell us what experiences you have had and the result of these experiences and actions. And then you can see, just like PwC, they've got 4 or 5. It's 5 for PwC, isn't it? 5 competencies?
Yeah.
These guys have got 4. Adaptability, effective communication, self-motivation and drive to success, and client focus. Does that look like a sort of question that you might have been asked, Abby, I wonder?
I wonder what client focus is in regards to a student.
True. Very true. Yeah, very
I guess it's like having the mindset to always think about how you can add value to clients, but I guess that's...
It's probably linking back to your business acumen of what a client is, and then assuming if I was in that position, I would be doing that. Imagine if you went into an interview like IBM or PwC and you didn't know what a client was.
True.
For example. Guys, have a go at answering this. If anyone wants to put up their hand, and maybe I'll come to you and just see if you can answer one of them. You can just pick one of them: adaptability, client focus, self-motivation. Maybe have a bit of a go, or type in your answer if you want. This is where I'll see if people actually do it. But do put up your hand and I'll come to you if you want to try and have a go at that. While that's going on, a couple of questions. How do you make yourself stand out during the group stages? Abby?
So when you say the group stages, I think it's easier to answer that if I say in a group interview. So when you do the final stage, you will be invited normally along with other people. So how would you make yourself stand out in that scenario? Be a good listener. I think it's so useful to listen to other people and to be able to add comments based on what other people have said and say, you know, that's a really good idea. I like that point, and actually support people, because although you are essentially competing against them, you need to be a team player and you need to be able to support other people. If someone's being a bit quiet, you know, ask them what they think, include them in the conversation. If people are going off topic, you know, bring them back to the focus, keep track of time, all of those things.
Yeah, good point. And obviously, no one's putting up their hand. Probably I would never put up my hand for that question either. But maybe I'll come to you, Abby, on this. So UBS then is a big Swiss bank. Do you work for them at all?
We probably do. I don't, but we probably do.
So here we go. They're saying, what have you learned at school or college that is particularly relevant to your chosen business area of working at UBS? So again, they're trying to make you really link back your examples of what you've been doing in school or college and why UBS. You know, why is that relevant? What a lot of companies look for is, you might go to UBS or PwC and say, oh, I want to be an investment banker, or I want to be an accountant, but that's not good enough. They want to know what department and why. For example, you can choose tax, consultancy. You can choose. You would have to choose consultancy at one stage. Abby, what made you choose consultancy, and did it help you in the interview that you chose in that specific department?
Yeah, so because consultancy is problem solving, I kind of gave a lot of my examples where I'd had to solve problems or challenges. I also kind of talked about being creative, because the solutions aren't always as straightforward as you might think. So yeah, kind of those more softer skills, creativity, kind of a drive to always learn more, and always think solution orientated.
Okay, good stuff. I like it. And you can tell you would have interviewed well. Maya, I'm just going to come to you now. Bear with me. I just got to take you off mute. Maya, and I'm trying to, maybe that's not going to work. Maya, maybe you don't have the ability to speak, actually. For some reason, I don't seem to be able to take you off mute, which is quite frustrating. Bear with me one moment. Can I have another go? Oh, there we go, Maya.
There we go.
There we go.
Going back to IBM, I currently work in Waitrose in Tunbridge, and I'd just like to know, for be effective communication, can that count as just telling a customer, just explaining to a customer about a product in a branch, just where it comes from, or well, not just that, but just explaining the rules and stuff we have in Waitrose, and just trying to be as effective as we can when it comes to communication. I just wondered if stuff like that in retail, if that would count.
Abby?
Yeah, I completely. That's exactly the kind of things that they're after. And I would actually take that one step further and say, I did X, Y, Z for this customer, and as a result, that talk about their expression. Were they enthused? Were they buying the product? Were they really happy? Like, talk about the results that happened as because of what you did.
Yeah, I mean, some of them were well, depending on the situation, some of them were very unhappy, but that's only their opinion. But that's only because it just wasn't what they wanted to hear. But still, there were a lot of them were understanding, and understood what I was talking about.
And Maya, just on that, people always say, "Oh, does this count? Is this enough for my CV? Or can I talk about this?" What you've just described there is more than enough. Most people don't have a part-time job anymore. The fact that you've got that shows that you're proactive. Remember, you're talking to a lot of stakeholders. There's customers, there's your boss, there's your colleagues, there's maybe people underneath you, there's maybe third-party cleaners, for example, who are coming in. There's communication all over the shop there. So you can probably nail an interview just with one shift on Waitrose. In Waitrose.
And also, the what you described about difficult conversations, again, that's great experience to showcase. You navigated challenging circumstances, challenging environments. I mean, they love that stuff.
yeah. And also, just a quickie about adaptability. Is that just how I naturally adapted to the role? Because I've been working there for about 2.5 years now, part-time. I only do it once a week now. But just, is it like, just adapting? I'm sure it is, but just making sure, just adapting to the actual job, and just getting used to the staff and my colleagues.
Yeah, for example, try and list all the different changes that have happened since you've been there, and how you've dealt with them all, and maybe how you've dealt with them all. But then what we'll come on to in a second, but try and specifically come up with some examples of where you made a particular impact. So it's all about making sure that you're looking at yourself and what you did in that situation, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Maya. Maybe come back on later on. I'm just going to move it on one. But really
brilliant.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks for that.
No worries. If you could just mute yourself. So there we go. Thanks. So Jane is Henderson here, another city firm, competency-based question again. Can you give me an example of when you have been a part of a successful or non-successful team, and explain why it was successful or non-successful? What role did you play in the team? exactly like we were just saying to Maya there about what did you do in that team, which is important. So I just want to just bring it back to that last IBM one. We've just had a question, an answer come in from the IBM question. Let me just bring it back. Sorry, guys. Effective communication. During my part-time, okay, Abby, you gotta assess me on this one. Okay. During my part-time job as a tennis coach, I need to be able to communicate well with the children to ensure that they are staying safe, having fun, and improving their tennis skills. What do you think of that?
I think that's a really great answer. And again, going back to this point of like showing the impact it had, you could even say, as a result of my really effective communication, I kept them safe. And, you know, they had fun as well.
Yeah, exactly right. And we're going to come on to that actually, because what we've just seen there in that example is very good, but we need to pad it out. So we need to get onto the example. Actually, I'm going to skip on one more. We don't worry about doing examples on this. Just think about it yourself, because Essentia, and oh, by the way, Essentia EY, oh, sorry about EY, Abby, I know that they're one of the big four, who rejected you first day. So we'll quickly get off this one. It's their loss. Essentia and EY are still recruiting at the moment if you're an apprentice, aspiring apprentice who's looking into getting a degree level apprenticeship this year. So they use the strength-based recruitment, okay? So you can see how the questions are different. How do you feel about deadlines? How do you feel about deadlines? You wouldn't really get a question like that potentially at PwC, who might be more competency-based driven. What unique qualities would you bring to the company? So you can see there, it's looking at what am I good and what am I bringing to the company. At EY, what's been your biggest achievement to date? So they're not linking it to them, they're linking it all to you and what your potential is. What skills and strengths do you think you'll bring to the role? Abby, what do you think about those questions looking at them? Have you seen them before?
I haven't, but I really like them. I think it's quite a self-aware question, and it makes you really think about, yeah, like you say, your uniqueness, because it allows them to then judge whether or not, you know, you're a fit for them and you're the type of person they want representing their brand. So it kind of makes you think about your self-brand and your image, which is good.
Guys, could you put your hand up if you think that it'd be easier to answer these questions than it would be the other questions we saw? Just put your hand up if you think it's easier, these questions or these questions. Put your hand up if you think these would be easier. I've got 3. I've got 3 out of 53 at the moment, 11. And some people might be fiddling, going, how do I raise my hand?
Some people are saying these are harder.
Really, these are harder. Interesting. Does anyone want to comment on these? I wonder. I'll just lower everybody's hands there. We got up to about 20, by the way. 20, so about just under half thought that they were easier. So people thought that maybe these were harder. Let me just. For some reason, I'm struggling with the hand gestures. Okay. Does anyone want to comment on that? Potentially.
So someone's just said that they're a bit vague. Like you have to be very self-aware. And I think I do agree, but I think that's the point. They want them to be vague and broad so that they can then assess how you express yourself and how you want to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just realised why I can't lower hands, because you're the host at the moment. it will work. Okay, so there's lots kicking off in the chat here. Some people think they're easier, some people think they're harder. But guys, hopefully it's helpful to see both in terms of what you might be asked. But now let's prep for, depending on what you are asked, let's look at this, what the whole webinar is about really, just to make sure that you can leave knowing this strategy. So situation, what was the specific challenge or situation? So Waitrose, whether it's your tennis coaching, you need to now practice this basically about the examples that you've got. The task, what was required of you? So a lot of people do this where they don't be specific. They're not specific enough about them. It's all about you in this, because if Abby and I were both in the final stages, they don't want to know about the team. They want to know about Abby and they want to know about me and what our contributions are. Action. What did you do in this situation? What action did you take? It's not we. Quite often it's I did this and we benefited from that, but this is what I did. Result. What happened or didn't happen as a result of what you did? Abby, have you seen this before?
I have not, no.
Okay.
Well, I have when you shared it with me earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a technique used to basically make sure that we're nailing the interview. So for example, the Waitrose example or that tennis example that we had earlier, it didn't quite come towards that. So here we go. Let's see if that tennis example does work. Okay. During my part-time job as a tennis coach, sort of setting the scene. I needed to be able to communicate well with the children, to ensure they were all staying safe. I feel like we need to know a little bit more about the situation. Would you say, Abby, there?
Yeah, potentially more. I can give an example of one that I would have used when I was applying.
Okay, go for it.
So when I was doing the Young Enterprise thing at school, my situation was that I had to create a business plan for our company, and I didn't really know what needs to be in a business plan. So that was the task. So the situation was I was doing Young Enterprise. The task was I needed to create a business plan. The action was that I went to my business teacher and I said, please, can you go through with me how to create a business plan? I then went away and did loads of research. I made the business plan. And as a result, our company got put forward for an award to win the finance award because of the business plan that we've put together.
Bingo.
So that was an example I used in my PwC interview.
Did you use it? Yeah?
Yeah, probably not as well structured as the STAR, but in some form.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Thanks for that, Abby. So rather than just telling, so potentially, I know I keep picking up on it, the tennis example there is you're telling us what's going on, but we need to actually show and actually really bring that out. So here's an example about Wagamama. So whilst I was working at Wagamama, 50% of the team were unexpectedly absent from a busy shift. On my own initiative, I asked members of the kitchen staff to move to the front of the house to ensure customer service expectations were met. The restaurant manager publicly commented on my actions at our staff meeting as an example of initiative and proactivity. So again, imagine you're painting, I'm a visual learner, I'm painting a picture here. You've got to paint the whole picture for me to make sure that you're really, really answering the question brilliantly. And how that was broken down, hopefully this is helpful for you. So just to really show you there, to all those visual learners, the situation and the task was put into one. I was at Wagamama, 50% of the team were unexpectedly absent from a busy shift. You can put this into the Waitrose examples, the tennis coach. I used to play sport all the time. Whatever that might be, you can put it into your situation. Worst case scenario, hopefully you don't have to, but you could always make it, exaggerate it a little bit, couldn't you? Did you ever do anything like that at interview? I'm not sure. I won't say.
I think it's one of those things where everyone's trying to sell themselves, and if you don't exaggerate, you will only disadvantage yourself because everyone else will. So, yeah.
It's a bit like me sort of saying, I'm not sure if this counts because I only did it once and it wasn't that important. And
you still did it.
Yeah, exactly right. So hopefully that helps, guys, in terms of how we split that out. And you can see that at the end as an example of initiative and proactivity, linking that back into the skills as well. But all I want you to focus on now while we do it is have a little go. So I want you to have a go. Put your hand up if you want to share it with us, and we'll sort of give our comments, or you can write it in the chat box. So remember, just going back here, start, situation, task, action, result. You've all got examples out there. I want to hear a couple of them if we can. Abby, we're also really behind on questions here.
Yeah, I typed answers.
You can type in answer there, then it will move across. Here we go. We've got Maya. Do you want to have a go at that? Hopefully the Waitrose example would be good to, Abby, I think you've got to let her talk because you're the host.
Yeah, hang on.
And you can go to Maya and you can unmute.
I think she can talk now.
Yeah. So I've got another Waitrose situation. I think it was in terms of situation. I think it was a in Challenge 25 where you got to have to ID people if they look under a certain age to buy cigarettes or alcohol or lottery tickets. There were a couple of situations where admittedly I wasn't thinking straight. I had probably like a rough day, and there was one situation where I got told that I didn't do that and I need to do that. But even times before that and times after that, I had actually done that. Even though they looked, well, they were probably in their 20s, late 20s, but I did them anyway because to me they looked young, and that's the whole thing about Challenge 25. If you're not like sure about someone's age, you're meant to just kindly ask them for their ID. If they don't have it, then understandably you would refuse to sell them, and that's their problem if they don't have the ID with them. But that's the whole part of Challenge 25 is we're meant to ID people, and there was one situation where I did that. I've done that many times as well, but
so I think in that situation, I would focus on your proactivity to always kind of challenge to stay within the law and be compliant around that. And as a result of that, Waitrose brand was protected and all of that stuff. Don't focus too much on the specifics, but more the outcome and the situation and what you did. So,
but and what I got from that brief moment there, Maya, because I do want to make sure other people can speak as well, but very good. Situation under 25, the task, to ID people. Challenge 25. What if I was like an auditor or company that really wanted someone to go by the book and follow the rules? I'd be like, brilliant, Maya's great. She's going to follow the rules. She's going to do what's right. She's going to be reliable. However, I didn't need to know about the rough day, because then I'm going to be like, oh, can Maya handle a tough day, or can she not handle it? You see what I mean? It's all about putting yourself in that positive light. But good example there. Thank you. Does anyone else have
what I was also going to say just quickly is, as the result of that, I did actually get a small gift from a manager as a result of passing the what's it called, Challenge 25 serve legal test. So that was a good result.
Brilliant. So there we go. That you're using it effectively. Well done there.
Thank you.
Has anyone else got an example? I want someone to absolutely nail it if they can. Good feedback there from Max. Thank you. Here we go. Have we got anyone? Potentially not. We'll wait a few minutes.
Do you want me to answer some of the questions that come up?
Please, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to try and go through them quickly. How long does each individual application process take? Again, it's completely dependent on the individual. There's not a set time. Could you do an assessment day webinar at some point? Chris, can you do that?
Yeah, we are going to do one. Absolutely.
Cool. You've applied to an investment banking apprenticeship. Will the coronavirus affect the number of apprentices they will take on this year? Again, I can't speak for other companies, but I know that PwC are following government guidance and are working hard to make sure that it doesn't affect that. So my guess is that they will also be doing a similar approach. How do you make yourself stand out in an interview process? I think we've kind of touched upon that, but yeah, just be yourself, be inquisitive, ask questions, try your hardest, prepare for every stage as much as you can, all of that stuff. Will PwC be doing any online work experience? I don't know the answer to that, but if you keep checking their website, then they're going to be updating it regularly, and I'm sure it will be on there if they are. I know that KPMG do offer virtual work experience, so maybe look on there if you can't find any from PwC. Do you think you need an apprenticeship to end up at PwC? If not, what should I study at university? You absolutely do not need an apprenticeship to end up at PwC. It just helps you if you want to go straight in from school. And again, what should I study at university? Study what you're passionate about, what you're actually interested in. No company really cares what subject it is. They just care that you have a degree to some sort of standard. I think the majority of them are now 2-1s. So yeah, choose a subject you're going to work hard for and study hard for. I don't know if I've missed any others.
You're looking through them well there. And just on that slide, preparation, skills and behaviour and details. So guys, you've all got the knowledge, you've all got the examples, you've all got something. Even if it's looking after a family member who's difficult, even if it's volunteering for 5 minutes, whatever that might be, always just trying to think about these examples that you can use. Elena's just put a really good long note in there on the chat. Should we have a go at that, Abby?
Yeah.
Okay, just this is the final one, and then we'll just move on. So you've got to tick off star for this, okay? During my part-time work as a self-employed piano teacher, I had a difficult student whose mum repeatedly dropped her child off late and picked her up even later. Sounds traumatic. That wasn't part of it. I needed to address this situation as it was disrupting my own schedule and taking advantage of the fees she was paying me and for half an hour lesson. So I politely mentioned that the lessons needed to be only half an hour and on time if possible when she picked up her daughter on the day. When I returned home, I had a WhatsApp message from the mother apologising. And so I asked if there was anything I can do to make the piano lesson easier for her. We eventually agreed that I would walk to their house for lessons instead of having them at mine. And as a result, I kept teaching the students successfully for more than 6 months to this day. This is an example of my adaptability in difficult situations, client awareness, and communication skills.
Absolutely nailed it.
Yes. Well done, Elena. That was good work, even though I did struggle to read it out. Okay, just conclusions and plenary really good before we go on to some questions. So hopefully you're feeling more prepared for the interview. We saw there that Abby knew there was 7 stages, wasn't it, at PwC? 7 stages in terms of preparation and all the way to the offer. So know what you're going into and know what to be prepared for. You should all feel confident in answering questions, whether it be strength-based, what's your favourite food, what's your favourite day of the week, whatever that might be. There's a head of a company that we work very closely with, and if you sit on the edge of your seat and you sort of sit up and you're really passionate when you're talking about, they're a technology company, okay? So it's a technology company, you start talking about it, you maybe gesture using your hands, you get excited. That's a big tick for them because it shows you're passionate about it. At the same time, if you're just sat in your seat talking normally when you're talking about something you're meant to be passionate about, you're not going to get through their interview. You should feel practiced and ready to support things. So basically, if you ever go into an interview, you've got to practice. Abby, how did you go about maybe writing down your examples and thinking about the strategy before your interview? Did you practice with anybody?
Yeah, I practiced with my parents. I literally did so much research. I did months of practice for my psychometric tests. Like, my maths was not great, and it was like answering questions really, really fast. And I spent ages practicing for them. But that's the kind of effort that you need, and you kind of have to expect for these companies, because they do get thousands of applicants, and you can't let yourself fall behind on the fact that you haven't done enough preparation.
And what I love about your story, Abby, is that you got rejected. I always think that successful people get rejected all the time. If you're not getting rejected, you're not trying hard enough. Can you just really, when you got that rejection from EY or maybe one of the others, did you ever feel like giving up? Because we're all human, aren't we?
Yeah, I absolutely did not feel like giving up. If anything, I was thinking about how can I change the situation so that I can try again. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll do a gap year and I will, do experience in something else, a smaller company, and then I'll go and reapply next year. Or I'll find another company that does the job I want to do and I'll apply there. I definitely didn't give up.
No, well done. I love it. Guys, could you just type in the chat box, please, anything else that you've learned from this session, just before we move on to some questions about with Abby. Just if there's anything else in the chat box that you picked up or learned, if anyone wants to say anything. I just want to do this a little bit at the end with my teacher hat on, just to make sure that we've sort of covered things. STAR is a really simple process. We're going to do more stuff like we're going to do the assessment day webinar. I want to do a standout at interview stage webinar as well, to look like, nail from the reception room all the way to the interview, how to nail that interview, and then what we do in terms of follow-up as well. Is there anything specific that anyone has learned? Do feel free to write it down in the chat box. Otherwise, we'll go to questions with Abby. I don't know if this is relevant, but I was wondering if you could go back to university to do a postgraduate degree after completing a degree level apprenticeship somewhere. Can you go back to uni after doing an apprenticeship? The answer is absolutely yes. So I think people get a bit confused. You can go to uni, drop out, or you can go to uni and finish it and go on to an apprenticeship. 25% of apprenticeship starts come from graduates. So what that means is that, like some people are actually going to university, then getting Abby's job later with all the debt, which is an interesting one. But you can go to uni at any time. Abby, do you think you'll ever go to university?
I don't think I will, no. I think it's really interesting because if you look at manager grades, which is kind of like the middle benchmark, all of the apprentices that joined kind of, 5-6 years ago, they're in manager positions. And if you look at the other people that are managers, they're in their early 30s, their late 20s, like you just have such a head start if you join as an apprentice. So there's no need for me to go to university. I would only be delaying my career progression.
Okay, so okay, yeah, I think that answers it absolutely. Good stuff. So look, we've covered the. Oh, actually, just before we move on to questions with you, Abby, like anything else you want to cover that we've gone through with the interview or STAR interview technique, would that have helped you going into PwC?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's definitely, to get to the interview, you need to have practiced your psychometric tests because they are a big thing. But yeah, just be yourself, be open.
And psychometric test is another one that we've got down as well, because I know people will need help with that. I definitely would. Cool. So Q&A with Abby then. So we can ask, we obviously know that Abby came from Kent. She commutes up to London. I wonder what that's like. She works at PwC, one of the biggest firms in the world. She works in consultancy. She's just moved into a technology department. What does that mean? And I'll be, I don't know what grades you got or anything around that. Not going to go to university doing the apprenticeship route. So any questions at all, guys, put up your hand. And we'll be able to bring you through. There's not been that many people speaking on this one, which has been fair enough. There we go.
Okay.
We've got one there.
I think it's just a phone number, but I don't know your name.
No, but you should be able to let them speak.
Yeah, I've unmuted them.
Yeah, they need to just make sure they can unmute, and we should be able to hear them soon.
074325.
Yeah, talking is permitted. Got one shot? No. Anyone else? Put your hand up. You can ask Abby anything at all. I'll just flick through a couple of the last questions. Oh, here we go. I think this was a question they were trying to ask. Do you think that companies prefer it if you have done an apprenticeship rather than doing the university route?
I don't think they prefer either of them because your entrance stages are going to be different. So, yeah, it just depends what's right for you.
Yeah, exactly right. And guys, that's the same. Companies all do graduate schemes. Many of them now do apprenticeship schemes, and it's just down to what's right for the learner. We're seeing a big rise in apprenticeship schemes, and that's why it's good that you guys can know about that, because so you've got the options. Is anyone there?
I think we had. I'm trying to. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, the audio is not very good, mate, unfortunately. Yeah, sorry. Go on, Abby, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, I think someone called Effie was trying to speak.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to unmute them.
Yeah, not to worry. Which websites did you use to practice psychometric tests, Abby?
I literally just Googled practice psychometric tests, and I bought like a month of a license to practice them, and then just did them every day.
Guys, we've got some links on our website around that, by the way. In terms of next steps, by the way, just while I've got you here, just in case people start logging off, which no one is at the moment, which is cool. We'll send you a short survey after today, just about how you found it. Tomorrow we've got one on careers in law, and they're looking at application processes. So even if it's not law, or it's something like PwC or professional services or banking, you might want to log on to that and see what it's all about. And this link here, which I'm just going to put in the chat box, if you're not already on our, I thought I was going to put in the chat box, if you're not already on our program and getting our emails, then you can basically use that link to sign up, and then we can send you information following up from this webinar as well. But we are going to be doing stuff on psychometric tests as well. I'll just copy that for you in a second.
Cool. I'm just looking at some of the other questions.
I'm going to fire through some of the questions, so I'll just do the admin.
Cool. As an apprentice at PwC, do you get any opportunities to travel abroad? Absolutely. There's apprentices in Dublin before all of the COVID-19 stuff. They've been doing loads of work in Saudi Arabia. There's loads of opportunities. We do college days all around the UK. So yeah, definitely. Can you email the slides to people, Chris?
Yeah, we're gonna send the recording actually, so they can do it at their own pace and then hear the comments as well.
So degree apprenticeship or higher apprenticeship. I'm going to take your question to mean which one am I? I am a higher apprentice, which means I do not have a degree. But also, if your question's asking which one's better to do, It really kind of depends on what the company offers. So, for example, PwC does not offer a degree apprenticeship in management consultancy. However, if you want to be an accountant, or you want to be in tax or something like that, then they will have degree apprenticeship options. Did someone try to speak?
Yeah.
You're on. Maybe unmute them. Maybe mute them.
I'm trying to work out who it is.
Guys, I'm just going to put the link in the chat here. Chris, what recording are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about the record. So I'm recording this webinar, guys, and we will send it to you. That'll be in the email tonight.
Is there a limit to how many applications you can apply to? Yeah, I think it's 1 every 6 months at PwC, but it will be different for other companies. As an apprentice, do you have to travel out if you do not want to? Yeah, I mean, management consultancy is a very travel orientated career. There will be other careers that don't have as much travel, but I'm sure you can kind of voice that you would prefer London projects. As an apprentice, do you get any? Yeah, I've done that one.
I think because we are not getting any people raising their hand, I think that we'll probably bring that to an end, because I know you've got to get off at 3 o'clock, Abby. But
yeah.
Are there any final words from you in terms of advice for the students around interviews, or indeed around what we've heard today?
Cool.
Can you? Sorry, we didn't hear you at all there. Sorry. Abby, are you still there?
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, we couldn't hear you.
But I didn't hear anything that was good. What was said?
Oh, beg your pardon. Okay, it must have just gone down. Just final words from you, will you, Abby?
Oh, yeah, I guess if you're interested in a company like PwC, top tips, do your research, find out what it is you're applying for, practice all of the techniques that Chris has done, follow up with Chris. He's got loads of great guys that can help you with this stuff and give you some more advice.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, Abby, we know you've got to get out of here and get to your call. Thanks so much for your time, and we'll speak to you soon.
Cool. Thanks.
Cheers. Bye-bye.